Hi everyone, I'm Greg from Pilot Institute. We train drone pilots all over the country.
Hi, my name is Haye from DroneXL, where we cover all the drone news on our website.
Welcome to the latest episode of the PiXL Drone Show, our weekly podcast where we talk to industry professionals about what they do in the UAS space.
From professionals who use drone to fly inspection missions to public safety users or even drone light shows, you will learn on the PiXL Drone Show that drones are much more than just toys.
And welcome, folks, to another episode of the PiXL Drone Show. Today, we are joined by a longtime friend of the podcast, Vic Moss. Vic is the president of DSPA, the Drone Service Provider Alliance. But here today, he's joining us as a different title, who's the director of the DAA, the Drone Advocacy Alliance. We're going to talk more about what the DAA is, which is not necessarily the topic of today's discussion. We want to talk about the drone bans because it's been a topic that has been on everybody's mind, I think, for the last several years, if we can even say that. So like we'll go into more detail. But Vic, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks. This will be a fun show, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit more about the DAA and what the mission of the DAA is?
Sure. Probably ought to start with DSPA because it kind of I don't want to say morphed, but has branched, I guess would be a good way to put it. DSPA is run by myself and Kenji Sugahara, and we started about 4 years ago just to kind of help drone service providers in the United States. There's no real true voice. Kind of help them when they're still, when things are going like at the federal level, even state level, or even even the local level. We've done things like reach out to senators, state senators. We've had some meetings with local drone pilots who are going to go ahead and testify in front of a city council. So we started doing that, and we started hearing some of the national stuff, the anti-China stuff started spilling over into the drone sphere. And fairly quickly realized that's way beyond the scope of something we could do by ourselves. So at the time, it almost was like it was just this thing that morphed together with a bunch of different U.S. drone companies that said, "Hey, you know what? We kind of need to band together and fight." I'm gonna say fight. I don't like using that word, but I think it's a good word in this case. Fight what's going on in D.C. and in some states, and so we started the DAA, Drone Advocacy Alliance. We became a 501c6, so we're actually officially a nonprofit. DJI was instrumental in helping us get started by funding some of the stuff that we do, and we're in the process now of kind of separating ourselves from DJI. They strictly basically fund us. We've got a board now as a 501c6. DJI is not on the board. We are autonomous from them, and we kind of make the decisions on where we want to go from here.
It's interesting because I've come across a lot of people who say like, "Oh, DJI is sponsoring this. This is run by DJI," but it's important to point out that they don't have any say as to the agenda or the actions that the DAA would propose, right?
Absolutely not. And we've been transparent since the get-go. Yeah. I mean, our first website, which is basically until we were 501c6, that's what we were. DAA was literally a website. That was it. We had no organization or anything like that. We were just a website, and we've been transparent from the get-go that DJI was part of it. At that point, as a partner, I guess would probably be a good way to put it. They're a partner. They're not on the board.
And officially, when was the DAA launched? Like, when did you guys go public with this?
Wow,
it's pretty recent, right?
It's fairly recent. I should have. You see, if you'd have sent me the questions, I would have known this answer. But it has not been that long, it was just
about a year, I think.
Organic. Yeah, it's about a year, but it was just this organic thing that all of a sudden we had a bunch of people like, "Hey, let's do this," and we're brand agnostic. We don't care. I mean, DJI, Autel, 99% of all recreational drones, they all come from China, so we don't care. We don't care. It's. If Autel wanted to give us some money to run things, we take their money too. We don't care. We're just drone agnostic. We just want to make sure that people have and maintain the right to use the drones that they need to use to perform either their recreational fun or provide what we need to provide to our clients, basically.
Yeah. Before we get into all the ban DJI drone stuff, one thing I noticed is that since you guys have gone live, quite a few drone organizations and drone brands and companies, including DroneXL, by the way, and Pilot Institute also have joined the DAA. Have you seen a strong growth in membership since all that news is out there about banning Chinese-made drones?
Oh, huge! I mean, that was the whole point. That's what started us. So yeah, we've got probably 30 now partners, and big names, small names. You can go at DAA, DroneAdvocacyAlliance.com, and they'll scroll across the bottom. We're not hiding anything from anybody. Absolutely.
I don't know, Haye, if you wanted to ask more questions about DAA. I'm very familiar with DAA, and I do have to say I'm part of the board. I'm one of the 4 that are on the board. The 4 people that are part of the board are drone companies that are based in the U.S. And
all of us
all have an interest in making sure that their customers can continue using whatever drone they want to use. So that's why I haven't been asking a lot of questions, Vic, because Vic and I, we
no, that's fine. That's fine.
This stuff a lot, but
yeah, we know, and we want to stay transparent. We are literally a grassroots organization.
Yeah,
I mean that's what we are. That's what we are.
So then this question is probably going to kick everything off. Why are we here together? Why are we inviting you today on this show? And why is June 12th such a big date for the drone industry?
Well, and I will maintain a calm demeanor. Basically, what's going on is we have what's called the Countering CCP Drones Act. Yeah. It's been bouncing around DC for about the last 2 years. It was originally introduced by Elise Stefanik, who is a congresswoman from the 21st District in New York. And what it does is it requires the FCC, so the the FCC, to go ahead and Communications Corporation Committee. I should know that. To go ahead and put DJI on a list of where they may no longer get FCC licenses for any new drones there, or even drones, gimbals, mics, all that stuff. Anything that requires an FCC license, DJI would no longer be allowed to get those licenses. So that would effectively ban DJI, and that truly would be a ban DJI, any more new DJIs from coming into the country.
And that would impact commercial drone pilots, but also Joe Smo, recreational, hobbyist, anybody who flies a Chinese-made DJI drone.
Yep, exactly.
It won't work anymore.
Well, they will work. It's not going to ground what we have. There is, I want to say, a remote possibility, but still a possibility that they could then, either the FCC or Congress itself could then turn the language around, and then they could retroactively revoke current FCC licenses. That would not ground our drones. What it would do would make it illegal via not having an FCC license to fly our drones.
It would open
so it
you
wouldn't
up,
ground
basically.
anything.
Yeah,
it would open.
It would open,
and it would
open up people for getting fined.
It would open up us for getting fined. The ones of us who fly for insurance, which hopefully is all of us, or fly with insurance, it could create some issues with our insurance policies, because technically we would not be flying legally. And anytime you're not flying legally, we all know there's the out for the insurance company if there's an incident. So it creates all kinds of issues. I'm not terribly worried that there's going to be a revocation of the FCC licenses. I was on the phone for over an hour with one of Stefanik's staffers, and when I asked her about that, she said, "No, that's not our intent."
Yeah, but
okay. I'll take her for her word until it's proven otherwise. That's sort of my philosophy in life. Trust people until they prove I shouldn't trust them.
So what is her intent, and why is she so hell-bent on banning drones made in a foreign country? Like, what's behind all this? I mean, I know the three of us, we know quite a bit because we're in the industry, but let's assume that people that listen to this podcast, some of them might not know what the background is, and it goes back years.
Sure.
But
it goes
what is
back
the driving
years.
force, and who's pushing this agenda?
The driving force is the alleged security issues with DJI drones. People are claiming that we fly our drones over critical infrastructure and we send all this data back to China. And that started. It started a while ago. It kind of gained ground. I want to say during the Trump administration when Brendan Carr, not the drone pilot Brendan Carr, it's a very unfortunately named person right now, FCC director, decided that he was going to try and make his points by basically adding DJI, wanting to add DJI to this list, the FCC list. So that didn't happen. Stefanik picked up the flag with that, tried a couple different times, and then this year it's gained some traction because of the anti-China sentiment in DC. She picked drones, I guess, because we're easy. I guess, I don't know, but that's the theory behind it. My reasonings, and I'd have to be in her head to qualify this, but I think it's pretty obvious if you look and Google Stefanik and Vice President. She wants to be on the ticket with Trump this year, and there's a fairly large crowd of people wanting to be on that ticket as Vice President, and I think this is her attempt to rise above the crowd. That's a guess. I have no evidence, but I think that's a pretty good educated guess. I think that's why we're in her crosshairs. That's why we're her whipping boy at this point.
Yep, sure seems like that for sure.
Yeah, and there's been connections, obviously, with people that used to work for her that now work for a U.S. manufacturer. So I think that the UAS connection is easy to make between the people that used to work for her that now work for a U.S. manufacturer, one specific one. And that one is also connected to an advocacy group that we all know and know. And there's a tie, and that's how all of this gets tied together. So I think the connection is very easy to make here. It's definitely unfortunate, but let's talk more a little bit about these security issues that have been popping up, and what. And what the logic is behind it. My issue is I have a hard time understanding why, if this is such a big issue that we've known supposedly for how many years have we been talking about this?
2017.
17. Yeah.
17. Okay, so even more. So for 7 years now, we've been talking about this, that it's such a threat, and yet here we are. We're still flying these drones, and I hate to say nothing has happened because I don't think that's a good. That's a good proof of anything, but in her proposal, she wants to ban those in the next several years. So if this is such an immediate threat, why wait so
Well,
many
the
years?
DAA
That's
would ban
my thing.
DJI right away. The CCPDA would ban DJI immediately, definitely. The other proposal we can talk about is too. But.
Yeah, the other proposal. Well, let's go there. That's an interesting one as well, right? They want to increase tariffs and basically almost double the price, or maybe even more than double the price.
It would not double the price. It would double the tariff. But I prefer the term tax because it's a tax. Let's be honest about this.
Incrementally go up.
Yep.
And then an additional $100.
$100. Right. Right now we pay. We pay a 25% tariff. Tax.
Yeah, already. That's been
now.
in place since 4 years now or something?
I think so. Something like that.
That was early Trump, I think. When
I think so too.
Yeah.
Which we're not being political. We're just we're just talking. We're just talking here.
Laying out the timeline.
Exactly. So then if this is the DFN, so Drones for First Responders Act. I work with an organization called DFN, so I keep getting it backwards in my head.
Yeah.
The Drones for First Responders Act is not. It's been introduced, but I haven't seen the language yet. Last I checked, she did not have the language in the GovTrack yet. So, but that would then, starting this year through 2030, it would add 5% per year. So we go from 25 to 30 to 45, 40 to 45 to 50, and then the last year it's 50% plus $100. I don't know where they came up with the $100. I asked the staff for that, and she never answered my question. But it would increase the cost of all Chinese drones. This is where all Chinese drones come into play, whether it's commercial, whether it's recreational, whether it's you see a lot of the ready-made RC aircraft that you see in AMA fields. A lot of those come from China. So that would affect recreational and hobbyists as well. And then in 2030, it would outright ban all Chinese products together, all Chinese drone products together, altogether, I mean. So, and in the meantime, what they would do is they would take that tax and create a fund for first responders, farmers and ranchers, and critical infrastructure folks to then buy replacement drones, since they will have to they can no longer use the DJI and Chinese gear.
So basically, we're taxing Chinese drone imports and then using that money to help first responders pay for more expensive American-made drones. So basically, we're financing American manufacturing.
Which I mean, personally, I don't have a problem with financing American manufacturing. I think it's something we should do. Other countries do it. Yeah. It's just the method of collecting the funds, as well as how the funds are distributed, they don't add up. And you can't build an industry on the backs of current industry users. It's just not how you do it.
I agree that we should have our own drone industry in the United States for a whole range of reasons. Right. I don't know if this is the best way to go about it. I agree with what Greg was pointing out earlier, that if we are that concerned, then one, show us the proof, but also why would we slowly phase it out? Why not immediate? Like if the danger is so obvious and so clear and present, why are we giving them years to phase it out?
Because it's not about that.
It's not about that.
Exactly.
It's not about that. So also the issue with the DFR proposal, like you said, the concept, the idea that this would help potentially fund public safety agencies to buy other drones and lift up the UAS manufacturing in the US is great in concept. The problem is that after 5 years, you ban the drones from China. And we don't know that in 5 years, the U.S. manufacturing is going to be able to pick up the tab and make it happen. If it doesn't, then in 5 years, we're SOL. And then not only that, but the subsidies that they would be providing for the next 5 years being funded by this tax increase disappear, which means that now public safety agencies are left paying extra with no help. And so what we've done is we've virtually inflated the market for no reason other than to fund the U.S. manufacturing. And then all of a sudden, now we're left with drones that are 50% more expensive plus $100 than they were 5 years ago. And we don't know that we would have a replacement anyway. So there are better ways to do this, by the way. There are much better ways to do this. If we want to put a tax in place, by the way, we've had a tariff, like you said, for several years, 25%. What has that done? Absolutely nothing, because we're still at the same location that we were before. So how do we think that a tax 5 years ago, 4 years ago, that didn't work is not going to work in 5 years? So if we want to help U.S. manufacturers, then let's get some money out of this, because this is potentially a war effort, right? This is what we're being sold, that we need to have our own drone. And I do agree with that. We need to have our own drone to defend ourselves. We're seeing what's going on in Ukraine and everything. So we need to be able to lift that up, lift U.S. manufacturers in the U.S. Fine, that's the goal. Then let's do it by providing them money with goals of how they can use that money to create more drones. Let's build this market. Let's build the offering for people to be able to buy these drones. And if they're good, people will buy them. We don't even need a tax.
Absolutely.
We don't even need anything else on top of it. If the drones are good, then we will buy them, and the industry is going to make it work all by itself. And then there's no need to buy DJI, because DJI is still going to bring good technology to the table and be competitive and help lift off everybody else. And if we really want to help U.S. manufacturers, let's give vouchers. Let's hand out vouchers to public safety agencies, because U.S. drones are going to be more expensive, which is fine. Then let's give them the difference. Let's help them to buy the difference and buy from the U.S. manufacturer if the product is good. If the product is good.
This is the core of the problem, right? It's not that easy to compete. We saw GoPro, which you would think would have plenty of money to give it a fair shot. They miserably failed with their drone. I mean, credits for trying, but they didn't succeed. We've seen Sony, bigger company, more money. They can't really get it together in terms of providing a consumer drone at a price point that's accessible to people. Skydio has a hard time. They left the consumer drone industry. They need to cherry pick in an industry or a market where you can charge more. Parrot isn't able to do it in the consumer drone industry. Like, how are we going to get started in the US with a company that's able to compete with a Air 3 or a Mini 4 or a Mavic 3?
No, you can't.
Let's put aside $100 million. Let's put aside $100 million from the budget to help UAS manufacturers to develop their units of production and to get ramped up. There's got to be an investment. If you listen to the drone manufacturers in the US, what they're saying, you and I, Haye, we had this discussion with Brink a couple of weeks ago.
Brink.
They are saying that the Chinese manufacturers are getting aid from the government to do what they're doing, whether it's true or not. Let's assume that it is true. Then we need to do the same on our side. We need to inject money into this in order to be competitive. Then let's do it without the tariff. The tariff is not going to fund this. Public safety agencies are not going to fund this. The regular users are not going to fund this, even with 50% tax. What you're doing is you're taking away people from buying drones. They're just going to go and do a different hobby. That's really what's going to happen. And there's going to be even less money to put back into the system. Why isn't the US putting 100 million? What's 100 million in our budget? What's even 500 million in our budget that we put into this to make it happen? If this is what we want to do, if this is what the government wants to do, then make it happen. Stefanik, go ahead and create a bill that's going to put aside $500,000 or $500 million for US manufacturers to do their job. It's that simple. Put your money where your mouth is.
And you know what? I'll disagree with the tariff part, because I think we should use the tariff. The tariff we have, the tax we have now, that 25% just goes into the general fund. And I mentioned this to the staffers, like, ditch the DFR, ditch it. It's useless. And there's a tie-in there with the other one too, which I'll talk about in a minute. You've got an income stream right now. Write a bill that says, okay, all that 25%, it goes into the fund.
Yeah.
But don't just give that fund to the people, the three groups of people you want to give it to. Split it down the middle. Or do the voucher program with part of it, like what Greg said. And you can take part of what you're doing now, and then you can then reinvigorate some of the drone industry partners or the drone industry manufacturers here in the United States with that other 50% of that already tax we're already paying. The money exists currently.
Do we have any idea how much has come in since that 25% tariff was first
imposed? It's got to
like,
be millions. Think of how many DJI and Autel drones have been sold, and then take 20% of their purchase price, because it's 25% tax. You got to take 20% off the top. That's a ton of money.
It's not staying.
It's going in the general fund.
No,
the general fund. It's just going in the general fund, being a mess. That's a story for another day.
How have the farmers and the first responders, how have they responded to the idea of them receiving part of the tariffs coming in the future? Are they excited about it?
I haven't talked to any farmers or ranchers. And I was actually, and it kind of shows you how much of a lobbying effort they have in DC for them to be part of that bill, which is awesome. Great for them. That's not a slam on them at all. First responders that I've talked to hate it. Yeah. Two reasons. One, if they're going to have to pay that extra high price too, right? Because if they're going to buy a DJ product, it has to be, they're going to pay paying that price. And their main complaint is, with what? What do we buy? What do we buy that's
Instead
equivalent to a Mavic
drone.
3 Thermal, the 300, the Autel Max? What do we fly? What do we buy? What can we get with that money you're going to give us for free? Thank you very much. We appreciate the money. It's going to sit in our bank accounts until we can figure out what the heck to do with it and what to buy. It just doesn't exist. The X10 is out there. It's, from what I understand, depending on who you talk to, a good platform. But no, it's 3 times the price of something like a Mavic 3 Thermal. Or more than that, actually, I think. You've got subscriptions on top of that. You've got, I haven't flown one, so I'm not going to talk about how it flies. But it's not there, and they can't produce enough to replace it anyway.
Is it fair to say that outside of DJI, there is not a single drone manufacturer that has drones that are affordable, that are capable, that are easy to fly, and that you can actually get? I
think Autel would fall in that too. The large quantity part, they also have. Even though they're Chinese, they are a Chinese company. No matter what other people say, they do have manufacturing capability issues as well. And I think that's just a matter of them ramping up. I don't know exactly, but other than the large quantity side, I would put Autel in the same bucket as DJI as far as quality and price and reliability and that kind of stuff.
Then going back to the country of origin ban, so you ban all the drones that are made in China. Is that even effective as a method? Like, is that going to solve the problem, or are there going to be workarounds? Are there ways that you can get around those rules?
You can just ignore the rule. That'd be about it.
If it's an FCC thing, you can go to Mexico and you can go to Canada and you can buy one and bring it back and use it, and of course, you're opening yourself to liability, which I would never, recommend to anyone. But that's going to be the limitation with the FCC ban. But we do have to talk about the security thing. So I kind of want to go back to the security thing because
Sure.
Vic and I have talked about this before. We being, I think, one side of the industry has been opposing constantly because we've been under attack. That's what I feel. I feel like we've been defending and trying to oppose these bills. But at the end of the day, we need to provide solution, not just saying no all the time. So let's talk about this supposed or alleged issue with security from DJI drones, because apparently that's the target, that's DJI drones, right? There's an easy solution here. What's the solution to make sure that all the drones that are flying, not just DJI drones, how do we make sure that these drones meet requirements? We set standards, right? What prevents us, in your opinion, what prevents us from having a set of standards that anybody can meet? And if they meet them, then what's the problem where they're coming from?
The issue with that is it's not politically expedient, and it won't get anybody into the vice president's chair. That's the problem with it. I told this very thing to the staffers, Stefanik staffers, like, look, if this is a problem, let's set up cybersecurity protocols. Exactly what you and I have talked about before, Greg. It's like, it can't be that difficult. And I made the joke last night on Dono's show. It's like, you know what? You know how easy it would be for these cybersecurity protocols to be developed? You put the people in charge of those particular agencies in a Super 8 for a week and give them nothing but milk and crackers, and they will come out of that building in a week with a perfect bill. And it would happen. It would happen that quickly. And maybe water and crackers if they want it in 6 days. But it would be super simple to do, and but it's not a politically active. It's not politically hot. It's not a political hot button right now. So I'm trying to say, and it's not. It would not be a popular choice, and it wouldn't elevate anybody into the position of vice president.
Yeah. So a security standard that anybody can, that people can meet, companies regardless of where they're from, along with third-party companies that can be trusted. I don't know if that exists out there that do penetration testing.
Oh yeah, there are. There are.
We've seen Enzu getting their Enzu did theirs. I don't know how many of these companies are out there, so so nobody can come back and say, well, this one company that did the penetration testing cannot be trusted. At one point, do you not trust the people that do this?
So you're supposed to
testing
trust
if they're professional, exactly. So, but maybe you have to do 3 of them from 3 different companies, and then it comes out. I don't know, but that takes care of the security issue. Then we don't have to ever talk about security issue, because now a drone that comes from France that doesn't meet the requirement just can't go in there. A drone that comes from Germany can't go in there either. And it doesn't have to be just because we don't like China.
It would be way more effective, because if you go based on country, you see exactly what happens. You get drone companies set up in different locations, and they'll just rebrand and make it not Chinese anymore, and they'll get around to legislation that way.
Yep. And I would add to this, and I have added, mentioned this numerous times, is if we're going to set those standards, we got to know where to fly them, right? 2209. So the bill that came out in 2016 in the FAMRA. We're supposed to have a list of critical infrastructure where we're not supposed to fly over anymore.
Yeah.
2016, reiterated in 2018, and we do not have 2209 yet. So what's the point of having all these wonderful security protocols for our drones, regardless of country of origin, if we don't know where we're not supposed to fly them? It cannot be. If we don't do that, we're back to a blanket ban again. Tell us where we're not supposed to fly. Do we need security in a national park? No, we don't.
How is it that hasn't been defined yet then, if this is such a hot topic? Like, why don't we have a list of places where we're not allowed to fly?
I don't know. I wish I had that answer.
That sounds bizarre.
Yep. It has been on the docket. Is it in the FAA Reauthorization Act, the new one?
I have not read the whole thing. I know you did. You read all 1,000 pages, right?
No.
You said you were going to, Greg.
Yeah, I'm still going for it.
I don't know, but it shouldn't have to be. Because it was in 2016, emphasized again in 2018. It shouldn't have to be emphasized again in 2024, 23 technically. It should be done. Last I heard, and I had no confirmation of this, last year it was in the OMB, languishing. And I've heard that there are some agencies that want this monster list, and there are other agencies that don't want this monster list. You've got the National Petroleum Institute wanting to get their stuff on there, electrical grid operators wanting to get their stuff on there. So I think it's just a bunch of catfighting, basically, that's keeping it from where we're at. It has to be a reasonable list, obviously.
Well, and then also, whether they're drones or not, really what we're talking about is cameras, right? So we're able to observe stuff, whether it's a camera mounted on a drone or a car or a phone or a security camera shouldn't really matter. And that's the other part that we kind of keep coming back to. It's like, okay, so you go after drones. Every Tesla drives around with cameras all over the car. Everybody with a phone has cameras. Like, why the focus on drones? Just because they fly, or because it's an easy target?
We have a better view. It's an easy target, and I'm the odd person out here in this group with the Tesla owners, aren't I?
Yeah, I don't have one anymore. But
I thought you did.
No, yeah, I used to, not anymore. So going back to June 12th, why is that day so important? And for all the people that are watching or listening, and they feel aggravated or annoyed and they want to take action, what can they do?
First of all, welcome to the club of aggravation and annoyance. At the DAA, so DroneAdvocacyAlliance.com, we have a take action page. And if you go to that page, there are... No, it's .com.
Okay. Sorry. Do that one more time.
We are Drone Advocacy Alliance. Okay. Best thing to do would be, if you're interested in this, which if you fly a drone, I have no idea how you can't be, go to DroneAdvocacyAlliance.com and go to our Take Action page. And we have 2 campaigns right now currently. There might be more by the time you go, but there's 2 currently. And one of them is the Countering CCP Drones Act. You can go there, click on that, and you literally fill in your address, and it automatically populates your Congress people, so your representative and your senator. And you can do one of 2 things. One, you can just push the button and it goes. We have a pre-filled out comment that can go that way. But what I would strongly suggest is erasing that and write your own. Tell them what's going to happen to your company or to your hobby if they ban DJI, any future DJI drones. And boom, it goes away, or it doesn't go away. It goes right to them. The other thing I suggest people do strongly, especially since we'll get to the June 12th date here in a minute, is coming up, is go to findyourcongressperson.com, I think it is, or whatever. Google who is my congressperson, and you can go to their website and you will have a phone number. Call them as well. Calls make difference. Calls make a difference. And when you do send the email, back to the emails here a second, you will probably get a response. It will probably be a canned response. Don't worry about that. That's typical of any time you contact a congressional office. What matters is the numbers. We've had over 5,000 people in the last month email via the DAA website. The main reason we really need to do this right now is the House has added language for the Countering CCP Drones Act into the NDAA, so the National Defense Authorization Act. That's the House version. Starting on, I think it's the 11th through the 12th, 11th through the 13th, I believe. The Tuesday is when it starts next week. So the Senate then starts what's called their markup on their National Defense Act. And what that means is you have the NDAA framework and language and stuff like that, and the markup is where people, senators in this case, can slide their stuff that they want to see, their pet projects, into that. And since the Countering CCP Drones Act is a defense issue, then Stefanik, or not Stefanik because she's House, there's a good chance that they will try to put that into the Senate version. And so what we hope happened is that we have enough people stop and realize, and common sense takes over, that, or at least enough people contacted and asked them to please use common sense, that it won't make it. If it does make it into the Senate bill, then it would also because Senate bill and House bill are never the same on something like this. They would then go to a conference committee, and then we can then reach out to the conference committee and say, look, this language has to be removed. So that's why it's so imperative, and that's why we're doing this right now, is it's just people have got to get out there, and before the 11th, or on the 11th, no later than the 11th, make sure they reach out to their Congress critters and ask them, the senators especially, to please, please, please do not add this language to the NDAA.
Yeah, I think it's important that you pointed out that they really should delete the template text and put in their own story with their own reasons. I remember when we had remote ID being promoted and or proposed, I should say. We had like over 50,000 comments, and the way they treat them is they analyze them and basically group them and put them in categories. So if you have standard text, it's basically going to get grouped into the large number of people who did not write their own stories. And I think it's much more powerful if you're able to write your own concerns, your own stories in your own words, and submit that instead.
And it doesn't have to be War and Peace. You're limited to how much you can write. And just if you want to do it beforehand, just do it on Word or do it on Pages, depending on what you run. And it just, just a real hate. If this happens, I'm going out of business. If this happens, I cannot enjoy my hobby anymore. And it can be short, simple, sweet. I will tell you that 67% of all drone businesses will go out of business eventually if they're not allowed to use DJI drones because there's no comparable. That's a DSPA or DAA. I can't remember which one of us put out the. I know Greg, you helped with that. Put out that poll, but it's an industry killing bill that Stefanik is using to climb her way to the top of the vice presidency. It's that simple. It really does boil down to that, and she's using her industry contacts, particularly with American drone manufacturer, to push this. It's the old adage in Washington is follow the money, and I don't think you have to.
Over the backs of drone pilots across the country.
Exactly, and recreational people.
Yeah,
definitely.
Well, and of course from the people that are potentially lining up her pocket as well. So that's
I know. I have no knowledge of that, so I will not go down that path. But
potentially,
it's DC. You can figure that out on your own. And one of the funny things is, I said earlier, I want to tie the two bills together. When I talked to the Stefanik staffer, which by the way was a great conversation. It ended with, at the time, the AAAC was still a thing, so I was actually going to be in DC about this time next week. And she said, "Well, let me know your travel schedule. Let's see if we can get together." And then that, of course, fell apart. So, but I pointed this out. And she didn't really have a good answer to this, but they're running both bills parallel, and that's their plan, is to run the DFR and the County CCP Drone Act parallel. But if you look at the DFR, which we really didn't dive into, we're not going to too much, but we did mention that the income is from Chinese drones. The new tax is on Chinese drones. The largest manufacturer on Chinese drones is DJI, obviously. Yeah. The huge by a vast margin. If they get the County CCP Drones Act passed, that means they're cutting off DJI at some point from being imported. Where in the hell is their money coming from DFR then? If they're pushing both together, these people are not dumb. They understand the correlation. Did they not think we would put that correlation together? This is literally having your cake and eating it too. That just occurred to me. What were they thinking? I could not get an answer from that.
So let me ask you this then. I mean, so we have the DAA right now. We're pushing to make this change. Right. What about the other two large alliances, the AUVSI and AMA? Like, what
AMA,
role do they play?
I talked with Tyler and. Oh crud! I'm sorry, I forgot his name. I emailed them last week and said, "Hey, what's going on?" And they are working their folks as well in DC about this. I don't know about probably not the Countering CCP Drones Act, but the DFR. We didn't really get into it deep because they're busy. I'm busy, and we really didn't get that deep into it. But yeah, they definitely, AMA is definitely doing it. AUVSI we've been told is not in support of the County CCP Drones Act. If that's the case, I think they should put their money where their mouth is, and Michael needs to come out and reach out to the folks they have, because they have a lot of contacts in DC. That's their job. You can't fault them for that. But Michael needs to reach out to those who are in the Senate at this point and say, look, the County CCP Drones Act is not the answer. And if I honestly think if Michael did that, and the rest of his staff did that, then the Countering CCP Drones Act would be a dead deal. I honestly think that, because he told me personally that they are not behind it. So if he would do that, I think we're in good shape. The DFR, that's another ball of wax. They actually do support that. Michael had a glowing review of it, and Stefan express release. And again, that's them. That's fine. That's what they do. But they can be instrumental in making sure that the CCCPDA doesn't pass if they really tried.
The problem with AUVSI is that they say one thing and they do something else sometimes, isn't it?
As AVSI leadership, the Rocky Mountain chapter, I'm going to not comment on that.
Yeah. Right. Well, anybody who's interested, I'm sure if you Google it, you can find it. But there's been at least one case where they say one thing and then behind the scenes do something else. So, but it would be great if they would be on our side and use their organization and their connections to make sure that these Chinese-made drones are not going to be banned right away.
I think that would be great, and I think they would go a long way for a long way in mending some bridges if they would do that. Today, tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. I mean, it's Thursday right now when we're recording this. We've got 5 days, 4.5 days.
Maybe we should invite Michael Robbins on the PiXL show, Greg.
Well, is the schedule to freeze in hell anytime soon? Because that's when that's going to happen.
No comment.
All right.
Let's go ahead and talk about Anzu, because Anzu Robotics came out now it feels like a month ago, maybe more, with this strategy of a Chinese drone, DJI drone, let's call it that, a DJI drone, a Mavic, and they bought the rights to this drone, and they bought the rights to the software, and they have the ability to now modify the software and basically run it through another company that we are all familiar with, Aloft, and that provides the most popular, Lance approved app out there. And this concept is interesting because Anzu is made in a different country, in a non-Chinese country. I think they're made in Malaysia, right? Using Chinese part, I'm sure, for some of it as well.
Oh, yeah, they are. It's on record.
And the software being controlled from the US on American servers, and having penetration testing done as well by one company. Is that the future, do you think, Vic, of how we're going to get around this Chinese thing?
I think it can be. The issues are, like you mentioned, some of the stuff does come from China, and John and Randall are open about that. They're not trying to hide anything. It's definitely a software thing. It's a country of completion. So where it's being manufactured, issue. They're not going to go blue. Randall already said that they're probably not going to go green. He has no desire to go through that brain damage. And it's going to be a matter of whether or not they can convince in their penetration tests, which they were successful. I think you guys both reported on that, which is awesome. If they can convince the powers that be in the companies that they are going to be selling to, the people that make the decision on whether or not they can use Chinese drones. If he can educate them in that, I think there's a market there, and they can fill it. I think they may end up with manufacturing problems too. It's like, we can't make enough. But yeah, I hope them. I wish them the best. There is a market. There is a niche, and it's people saying it's just a DJI drone. It's a DJI clone, absolutely, and they make no bones about it. But it's the security issue. If that's the issue, Anzu's the answer. It's that simple.
I think what I understood from Randall when we spoke with him on the PiXL show is that this idea actually originated from DJI. So
Sweet.
DJI is been trying basically everything to force the issue, if you will. And I think in a way it's very clever. It's also very obvious. It's clever. It's no longer a Chinese-made drone. So if you're going to ban a drone based on country of origin, then of course that's not going to fly anymore. These drones are not made in China. However, in that article in the New York Times, Elise Stefanik said, and I'll quote this here, this desperate attempt, referring to Anzu Robotics, to evade tariffs and sanctions is futile. DJI and all of its shell companies will be held accountable. So she's taken the stance that even if it's not officially a DJI company, it is still going to be regarded as if it were.
How can she legally do that? If there's a country of origin ban and you're not made in that country, And that just shows the politics of the whole damn thing. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I had not read that yet, and now I'm even more pissed than I was when I got up this morning.
You're right. Her actions won't work, but clearly she sounds like she's triggered, and she'll probably be looking for a different way to then ban Malaysia. I mean, I don't know what else comes out of Malaysia and what kind of impact that might have.
I think some Nikons do. And I'm a Nikon shooter, so please stay away from my cameras.
One of the last ones, no.
Hey, be nice.
Also, I don't know how quickly you can then extend and say, well, actually, the list of banned countries is going to be larger. We're going to include these other countries well, because and also Enzu could pack up their stuff maybe and then move to whatever,
right.
Mexico or some other country to build drones. So you're kind of back to the fact that banning a country of origin is not going to be an effective way in the end. I think the only way, and we spoke about it already, is you have to come up with standards, security standards that companies need to meet no matter where the drones are built.
I think that's
the only thing that works.
The only answer is the common sense answer, but it's the non-politically expedient answer. It won't make headlines. It won't make brownie points. It just makes sense.
Yeah. Boring and true.
Boring and
You know what? That is such a good way to end right there. I don't even know if we should say any more. Common sense. Last word of the podcast. Use your damn common sense. And let's make sure we don't destroy this industry. Perfect. How about that?
Please, yes. I think that's awesome.
And don't forget, go to the DAA website and fill in the form and please send it. Because without taking action, nothing's going to change.
And even if you don't want to write your life story and 20 words or less, the numbers count. The numbers count. Yep. They're seeing them in DC and they're making a difference.
Awesome. Well, I think this is seriously a great way to end. I think we end on a call to action for people. Go take action. If you disagree with this, obviously we're not forcing anyone to do this. And Vic, as always, thank you for your time. I'll probably talk to you in an hour because it feels like we talk every day for
just about
and about various things. And thank you for joining us and taking the time. We truly appreciate it.
Thanks for the invite. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right. Everybody fly safe. I got to end every podcast with everybody fly safe.
Cool.